All right, this video turned into a masterclass of how to set actionable goals that you believe in that actually set you up to succeed, and how to detach yourself from all the negative energy of the past that stops so many people from achieving their goals. Watch this whole thing a couple times. I promise you, it'll set you up to win.
Let's talk about goals. So we want to give a 3-step process for creating goals and setting yourself up to win in the new year. So at the time that we're recording this, it's at the end of 2021. So we're going to be talking about getting ready for 2022, but this can be applied to any time period. It could be from 1 month to the next, or obviously different years. It's just when you get ready to set targets for whatever the next time period is for you, you're going to be able to take this framework and apply it. And before we get to those 3 pieces, those 3 steps, let's talk a little bit about why people generally don't achieve their goals and or don't set goals. And I think those 2 things are related for a lot of us. A lot of times we don't set goals because we have a history of not achieving goals. And I don't like setting goals. I don't enjoy the process of breaking down a goal and saying, this is what I want to achieve this year, whether it's financial or and anything tangible. I don't enjoy that process. And I think most people don't enjoy that process. The people that are attracted to this channel, I'm sure the majority of you don't enjoy that process because you're more of a teacher and a creator, and you're not like a hardcore salesperson or driven by numbers. And if you are, that's totally fine. But I think most people are not in general. And I think most people in the coaching industry are not that way. They're not driven solely by numbers. That's not why you got into this industry. You know, you want to change lives. And so what we found over the years is that a lot of people don't even enjoy setting goals. And this is well beyond just the coaching industry, but it's because of our association to setting goals. The majority of us set goals, and then because we don't set ourselves up to succeed with those goals, or because we don't have whatever the support is, or because we have limiting beliefs or values conflicts or whatever internal obstacles and sabotage that we all have, we don't achieve the goals. So then the brain starts to associate goal setting with failure. And this is a really, really important piece to understand. I don't hear very many people talking about this. What most of us are wanting to learn is just how to whatever. How to set prices, how to sell, how to market, how to blank. And that strategy is important. But if your association internally to anything that you're trying to do is negative, then you're going to have to get over that, because the brain doesn't like being prepared to do something that it associates a negative emotion to. And failure, for most of us, has a negative emotion associated to it. So if you're trying to learn how to market, but you have a negative association to visibility, your brain's not excited about that. And your unconscious mind has all the power in the world to come up with sabotaging patterns and scary thoughts and negative head talk and all the things that can stop us from taking the kind of committed action that's required to set the goals, or to achieve the goals rather. So we live in this cycle. And the cycle is negative for most of us. So it's not really about goal setting. It's about goal getting. What are the elements for humans to get their goals? And I think we put too much emphasis on setting our goals. We break it down. We have the SMART goal, which is specific and whatever the other letters are. And that's great for setting up the target. It makes a lot of sense. It's a super cool framework, and the majority of people set SMART goals don't hit them. The majority of people that set goals don't hit them. I mean, that's just the human condition. The reason is because of the internal association that we have toward not just the setting of the goals, but the effort in the process. And then what happens if we don't achieve those goals, or what happens if we do achieve those goals? There's just so much negativity associated to achievement in so many different ways that that's the main reason that people don't achieve their goals, is a negative association to something about the process. So if we don't identify what the emotional triggers are, or the emotional roadblocks, the emotional fears that we have associated to the idea of, and the process of, and just the concept of setting goals and going after them, if we don't identify that thing that's really in the way, then it doesn't matter how well we set goals. And so I think because we put the majority of our emphasis related to achievement on setting goals, we think that if we set a goal properly, then we're going to get the goal. Because if we set the goal, then we must be motivated to get that goal. And I think that's a huge misconception. And it's a wildly false assumption for most of us. And as we go along in this video, we'll explain to you why setting a goal, especially one that you have a lot of clarity around, actually will set most of us up to fail more than it will set us up to succeed. And I know that goes completely against the idea of setting clear, specific, tangible, measurable, that's what the M stands for, goals. It goes completely against the way most of us have been taught. But we need you to understand how humans do this stuff and why we fail, so that we don't just keep beating our head up against the same wall. So we don't just keep doing the process that's not producing the results that we want to produce. So we're going to break that down a little bit, the internal game, before we even get to these 3 steps. But I know you don't generally like setting goals, or haven't in the past at least. So what's your experience with what I just said?
It just put a bunch of, well, 2 things. So one, you just said that most of us are following like the right steps, and also most of us are not actually achieving our goals. I just want to repeat that to make sure that's really clear for all of us. Like, most of us are following these SMART goals and these plans, and we're doing it right. And this was my story, and it's not working. And so I didn't like goal setting because I didn't feel good when I did it, because I was following.
So stop there. I think it's really important to dive in, and maybe you would have already done this, but before you potentially move on to something else, the reason that you didn't feel good, I think, is connected to what you just said.
Yeah.
People are doing the right thing, but they're not achieving the right goals. So then what conclusion do most people make that then produce the feeling of not good?
Yeah, I'm the problem.
Bingo. So that's the thing that I think that I want everybody to get. And again, maybe you would have gone into that already, but it's the conclusion that if I'm following the right recipe and not getting the results, then I must be the wrong ingredient.
Absolutely.
And if I am the wrong ingredient, that's not a very empowering thought, right?
Yeah.
To your and what you said, I think, is really critical, because I think that's probably the way that most people hold on to it. I am the problem.
Yeah.
So then if I was just more motivated, or I had more belief, or if my head was on straight, or all the different things that we say to try to motivate ourselves, it doesn't work, because ultimately we land on I am the problem. So that's the why behind so many people's negative associations. But I think most people don't recognize that those are the dots that are actually being connected. They just feel resistance, like, I don't want to set goals.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't set the goals and don't go after it. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that you put the time out. I didn't recognize it. So that assessment is only something that I've been able to recognize like over the past couple of years, looking back on my journey. In the moment, I was just like, I just got to work harder. Like, this doesn't feel good. Everybody else is achieving this. This is what everybody's teaching. This is what I'm reading in the books and what I'm listening to people on the stages. And that's what's being taught. So there is no other option other than I'm the problem. So I didn't feel good. And eventually, I think it's human nature that if something just feels like crap, why are we going to continue it? So then, since I couldn't fix me inside of goal setting, I just opted out. Like I stopped doing it. And
There's a hopelessness there.
Absolutely. Why bother? And I rarely would use this word, but it never felt fun. Like in just preparing for this video today, like I genuinely can't think of a time that I was like, oh, I love goal setting. Like, I don't like it. I don't like vision boards. I'm just like, because of what you were talking about, right? Just, it's that embodied, like my body physically remembers this felt horrible for us. And I don't want to do it because of all of that. And it just wasn't fun, Sean.
It's really hard to get over. I don't want to.
Yeah.
When your body and your soul and your spirit just says, I get all that stuff and I don't want to. That's really tough to get over. And we try to get over I don't want to with, but I need to, or if I'm motivated enough, or if I just try one more time, like we try to get over I don't want to with things that can't get over I don't want to. Or even if we find a way to overpower I don't want to, and you succeed against I don't want to, you'll build something that you don't want because it's built upon I don't want to. And what I've learned, I know you've learned this, and I know you help clients with this too. So it's better. So rather than try to overpower I don't want to with all the SMART goals and all the vision boards and all the things that we're taught are imperative to setting goals, it's better to change to something that you want to. Because if you really want to do something, I know you've done all kinds of things, as I have, that didn't include vision boards and didn't include SMART goals, and you still achieved it. Why? Because you wanted to. Right. So what's the overriding ingredient in all of this? It's wanting. And if we continue to try to push ourselves against the direction that we want to go, it's like swimming upstream. We're setting ourselves up for conflict all the time. And so it's better to step into a place on a path to go towards something that you want to do. And one of the things that I know we see this all the time, specifically in the coaching industry, is that people are following paths. They're following templates. They're following strategies that look good, but they don't want to do it. It's incongruent. It's not even aligned with what you want to do in your life. And so much of our coaching to so many of our clients is, it doesn't matter if it's possible. It doesn't matter that somebody else did it. It doesn't matter that it makes sense that if you just followed that recipe, it would work. What matters is, do you want to do that? Do you want the outcome of that? Do you want a business that looks like that? And I would say 90% of the time, and I'm probably rounding down, the answer is no. If the person actually knew what goes into that goal or what it requires to manage a business, the kind of business that they're trying to build, most people will go, I don't even want that anyway. So if you don't want to take the actions and you don't even want what the actions can produce, then why are you following that path? But that requires people to actually explore what they want. And that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other video. Yeah, that's a whole nother video. And a really important part of goal setting. And while I wouldn't have had any ability to articulate it at the time, that's also where some of the resistance came from in my journey. Because it was just easier for me to do what I was good at, not even really what I wanted. It was just what I was good at, which was just keep working. Like I was a hard worker. So if I just kept doing the things that other people said to do, then I just convinced myself that eventually I would get to this destination that I wasn't even sure of the details of, and certainly didn't even know if I wanted.
Yeah, I know one of the things that you've been talking a lot about and just noticing in a lot of our clients and our community, coaches community, is that a lot of people have these false expectations of the journey itself. And I think one of those false expectations or fantasies, really, like they hope this is true, is that if we can just push through this, then the wanting will come later. Or
Yep.
In order to get to the wanting, I have to get rid of all my fears, or I have to, be able to speak incredibly well. I know you were breaking this down just the other day, that you wanted to go from not being clear in your message and not feeling confident in your delivery to the A+ version. You just didn't want to do any of the stuff in between. And I think, right, like who wants to, do all that yucky stuff? And so there's the reason I think this is really important for people to get. And if this is landing for you, then let us know. Type it in the comment section if any of this is landing for you, because it's really critical for us to recognize what the actual problems are if we want to change the outcomes. And we always teach in these videos like what people need, not necessarily what people want to hear. We don't sell fantasies because they're not real. And so the work that we do with our clients is about making actual change. And a lot of times it's messy, or it's uncomfortable, or it's just not what people want to be true. So this idea of connecting with what you really want in the first place is critical. And if you don't connect with that, then almost anything after that, any kind of how-to strategy is, almost useless. It is possible to discipline ourselves or shame ourselves and just do the work, like you said, the stuff that you're good at, or the stuff that you're willing to do, or the stuff that's convenient. And it looks like we're taking massive action, but really we're just in motion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're making progress. We could just be in motion doing all kinds of stuff, and it's almost a waste of time because it's not getting us toward our intentions, toward our goals, toward the clear targets that we have. Is there anything else you can think of right now as to why a lot of us have these internal conflicts or obstacles before we get to these 3 steps?
The phrase misery in motion just needs to come out of my mouth. That's what I was thinking when you were talking. I was like, we're just misery in motion. Okay, now I can answer your question.
Misery in motion.
That's what it is. When we're busy. I think, and maybe this is tied in, Sean, but just that fear of not setting the right goal. Like I need to know what the right thing is to do what other people in the industry, are doing. And that could cause some resistance, that, fear of having it. What if it's the wrong goal? What if I go there and it's not actually what I want?
Yeah, we'll have to put a pin in that one too, because that could be an entire video.
Sounds like a series.
Yeah, it really should be. So when we do all these videos that we're going to do, we'll just connect them to here. Like, and here's the other thing about goal getting. So the bottom line is most people are actually set up to fail from the very beginning for all kinds of internal and emotional reasons. And then we try to overcome that with doing the right thing, clarity, following somebody else's process, following SMART goals or what have you, doing vision boards and all the things that can work. But if the goal is not even aligned in the first place, then goal setting methods really don't have the power to overcome, I don't want to, or I'm afraid to, or having some kind of values conflict. You know, most people are actually more afraid of success than they are of failure, which is another video, a really important piece for us to understand, because we spend so much time trying to get over our fear of failure, trying to avoid the fear of failure, but the fear of success is bigger. It's just not as in our face. It's like just hidden anchor below the water that we don't even realize is keeping us stuck. So if we have a fear of failure and we have a fear of success, and those are operating at an unconscious emotional level, then does it matter? You know, I don't mean to laugh at our collective misery, but bless our hearts. Does it matter that we set the right kind of goals? We're afraid of failing and succeeding. So what are we doing here? If we're afraid to fail and we're afraid to succeed, we might as well just stay here. And that's actually how our unconscious mind operates. And that's one of the reasons why we only give ourselves permission to do the stuff that doesn't move the needle all that much, but it feels good to some degree. It feels like we're learning. We take seminar after seminar after seminar, or program after program, and it feels like we're continually learning, and we are to some degree, but it's not moving the needle. So like we're taking the action that we have internal permission to take, but it's not creating what it is that we really want to create. So if you want to change this game for you, I suggest these 3 steps. The first step is to assess your previous year or your previous 6 months or whatever time period you're operating with. But you have to assess it in a certain way, because most of us look back, especially based on all the things we just been talking about. We look back on our past with irritation and with frustration and with resentment and with regret and with anger and with embarrassment and with shame and with all the negative stuff, because we don't like what we see. Right. And I don't know anybody, literally anybody, who's ever told me that they're completely satisfied with everything that happened in the year before. Because even if you set out your goals and you knock all of them down 9 months in, you're going to have more goals. Like that's just the nature of ambition. There's always going to be more stuff to do. So I've not met anybody, myself included, that looks back on a year and goes, I did everything I wanted to do. Right. And the reason that's really important is because most people look back on their previous year and go, because I didn't do everything I wanted to do, it was a failure. Even though they might not say those words exactly, and they might not be conscious that that's the connection, that negative feeling or the fear or resistance of even looking back into the past is because of that. Is because there's some assessment that it was a failure. I should have done more. I don't like looking at what I failed at. I don't like looking at all the missed opportunities and expectations and all that stuff. So since I don't like reality, it's just easier not to look at it. And as long as we are judging our reality according to whether it quote unquote worked or not, we're almost always going to have that same outcome. So again, I want to talk about what ingredients can change in order to give us a different experience, rather than, okay, this year, I'm going to look back and I'm just going to be happy. I'm just going to be grateful. I'm just going to be thankful. Well, you can't do that unless you change an ingredient in the recipe that you're using. And the ingredient that needs to change, in my experience, personally, and with all the clients that we've taught this to, is what are you actually assessing in your previous year? If you assess the output or the production, if you assess the results, if you assess the money made, if you assess the things that you created according to what you wanted to at the beginning of the year, you will almost always come out with negative feelings. And then the whole process from that point forward is probably not going to be fun. And you're not going to set yourself up to succeed. So instead of just focusing on the outcomes, instead of focusing on just the production, focus on the progress. Because now we're looking at more intangible stuff. And there's a time in business to focus on tangible, to track money in and money out and clients and numbers. There's a time for that. And there's also a time to recognize that that's actually not going to support us feeling better. And this is one of those times where if we take a look at from the assessment part, what are we actually assessing? What were our intentions? What was our effort like? Did we try? Did we give up or did we get up rather and make an effort? And you probably didn't make the amount of effort that you wanted to, but you made more than you could have. And that's a really important ingredient. And what most of us tend to do is we set these goals or intentions, and then our year doesn't, like our year goes off path somewhere around, if we're just going to use the calendar year, you know, we might set our goals and intentions at the end of December, let's say, and we know exactly what we want our year to look like. And then our year usually veers off track somewhere around the afternoon of January 1st. Right. And then from that point forward, it's never on track from what we wanted. Right. But we don't take that into account. You know, we forget the fact that we got sick, or we forget the fact that we intentionally made a new choice. We forget that we brought our in-laws in to live with us for a month, or whatever life delivered to us. We forget a lot of the adjustments that we had to make, and we're just so rigid with the intentions that we had. And this is not about letting ourselves off the hook. One of the reasons we don't want to do this is because it feels like it's settling. It feels like we're saying, it's okay if you never get any of your goals. We're just going to love you anyways and give you a participation trophy. No, that's not what we're saying. We're actually saying, in order to set yourself up to win next year, you've got to do this, because we have to detach from the negative energy. And the year's done anyway. Whether you look at the year with like fire coming out of your eyes or love emojis coming out of your eyes, it doesn't change what happened in the year. It doesn't matter. The year happened exactly the way it happened. The only variable is, how are you going to hold on to it? And what we're saying is, if you hold on to it the way most people do, with shame and resentment and anger and frustration, then next year's is going to be a different version of the same thing. It's going to just be another calendar year that goes by that you don't get what you want. You're not excited. And like, that's the cycle that most of us are in. So this first piece is about changing your energetic attachment to things you cannot change, to outcomes that you can't change. So look at your effort, look at your intentions, look at the progress you've made, look at the things that you resisted, like the temptations. Maybe you wanted to quit, or you wanted to go down this rabbit trail and you decided not to. Like, focus on the good stuff. Focus on the things that you can actually acknowledge with positive energy, so that this next step can happen with a complete different mindset than what most of us take into this next step. So before we hit the next step, what do you want to add? If anything.
It's like what you're saying is critical for this next step. Like if you really want to be like have a chance at achieving the things that you desire in the new year, whenever your new year starts, right? If you want to have a chance at that, you have to do this. Like, you have to do this part. And it's fascinating to me because we tend to forget all the stuff that happened, like all of the roadblocks, all the obstacles, the new challenges in our lives, but we remember to punish. We don't remember the things to celebrate. So what's really helped me with this process, because I used to just drag, like write my goals with, shame ink. And what really helped me with this process is, if I was talking to
shame ink. That's amazing. That sounds
it was.
That's a brandable product right there. Shame ink.
That's your New Year's goal.
And it really doesn't matter what pen you're using or pencil or whatever. Like, that shame ink is very versatile.
And what helped me is, if I was reflecting on this year and I was talking to somebody else, right? If I was looking at this year like it was somebody else's year, right? And that might be, for somebody, it might be, think about it like if you were doing this with your child or just somebody that you care about. Another video. But if I was looking at this year like it was the year of somebody that I actually really cared about, how would I evaluate? And shifting that lens, that it's critical, because the lens that we see our world through, that's the experience that we're going to have. Yeah.
Yeah, well put. The ink of shame does not write empowered goals or empowered anything using the ink of shame. So this step of assessing progress, not production, changes the lens that you're looking through for the second step, which is to learn the lessons. And when I say learn the lessons, these could be internal or they could be external. But you're never going, well, I rarely say never, because, universals are always wrong. But in this case, I think it's probably true. You're never going to learn empowered lessons while you're looking through the lens of shame. You're going to find reasons to punish yourself, like you just said, but you're not going to find things with the right energy to encourage yourself. That's why it's so critical to do step one and change our emotional attachment to the previous year, so that we can find encouraging lessons for the next year. And internal lessons are part of what we want to look for. I know this was a big one for you. The lessons of, how are we treating ourselves? How are we eating? How are we exercising? How are we resting? How are we nourishing and nurturing the vessel that we have? How are we setting boundaries? There's all kinds of lessons on the entrepreneurial journey that relate to how we are functioning internally. And are we setting ourselves up to succeed with the vessel that we have, with the fuel that we're giving ourselves? Or are we making an already difficult process harder because we're fighting against our own self-esteem, or we're fighting against our own physical body, or we're fighting against our energy? What is it that, or how is it that we are creating the internal elements to succeed? When I just said the word energy, I kind of mixed it with inner, and I said energy. And that's another thing to maybe break down. What's the energy? What's that inner energy that we need to fuel ourselves with? And man, that's a whole huge conversation. There's food, there's rest, there's internal relationship with ourselves, self-esteem, all that stuff. So we won't go into that in this video, but those are the internal lessons that you might learn. Like, last year, I didn't really give myself enough rest. Now, if you look at last year through the lens of shame, that'll probably sound like, look at you, you never give yourself enough rest. And it's just coming out with a whip rather than a lesson to implement. So the things that you might catch could be the exact same, but you're going to catch them differently and they're going to land on you differently. And I love the way you said, like, pretend you're talking to somebody you care about. How would you deliver that? So for next year, what if we had a little bit more rest? What if we had better boundaries? What if we changed our schedule so that we are actually in production mode, you know, more often, or we've got more time on a daily basis to create, or whatever those lessons are for you. So we want to look at why we didn't achieve the things that we didn't achieve, but we want to look at it with a positive lens of the lessons. And so some of those lessons could be external. It could just be simply, you know, we didn't put out enough podcast episodes. We didn't do enough live videos. We didn't publish enough on the YouTube channel. We didn't post enough on social media. But again, and hopefully you can even hear it in the tonality of my voice, these are just like neutral learnings. Yeah. Like the reason that we didn't hit the targets is because we didn't do these things that were necessary to hit the targets. But a lot of times we didn't even know that. We didn't know that we needed 20 podcast episodes. We just knew that we wanted, 15 consultations. But now we look back and go, oh, I guess we needed 20 podcast episodes. If we're looking back through the lens of shame, we're going to beat ourselves up for that because we should have known that which was unknowable. Yep. But if we're looking back through the lens of encouragement, it's just, oh, I guess we needed 20 episodes. We thought we needed 10, or I wanted to do 20 and I only did 10. Whatever our intentions were, and then what we produced is what it is, but can we learn with the energy of encouragement? So I saw that you reacted there when I said whatever I said about the, we didn't even know. You want to speak more to that?
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes we can't, like, we make the decisions that we make with the information that we have at the time that we make it. And a lot of the time, especially when we're doing something new. So if you're new as a coach, or you're new to a level in your coaching business, you don't actually know what it's going to take to achieve the thing that you've never achieved before. So you're just guessing. Right. And the words that came to mind for me inside of the assessment, in like the empowering is critical. It's more neutral. It's just curious. It's more exploratory. And I can speak to this from personal experience because I used shame as, well, I tried to use shame as a motivator and a driver for the majority of my like adult grown life. And it became, I remember I was leading a training call. And I think I probably sent you a message afterwards because I recognized after the fact I had messed something up, but I recognized it. I laughed. I thought it was funny. And then I immediately made an adjustment. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so much easier. If the goal is to take action and to take as much action as possible, it's so much easier to do this if I don't have to get over having beaten myself up for making a mistake first. If I can just skip that step, then I'm going to get back into motion so much faster. So just neutral noticing, oh, that happened. Okay, that happened because that happened. Oh, all right. And then it's just more curious and more exploratory and more scientific and less personal. It's me, I'm the problem energy. And just, this was the choice that I made. And this is the result that came from that choice. I would like a different result in this new year. So what are some other possible choices I could have made? It's the could have conversation that we have with our coaches, right? Could have instead of that should have shame.
Yeah, that's a really important piece, that last statement, the could have instead of should have. And I mean, ultimately, it's just learning the lessons that are positive for you to go forward. So what I suggest all of you do that are watching or listening to this, is to implement what we're saying. So step number one is to look back and assess progress and not production or perfection. So do that. Actually write down how you would assess the year. And then step number two is, what lessons did you learn? Internal lessons, external lessons, whatever it is. Learn those lessons on paper. Don't just listen to this and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And I agree with this. And I don't know how that would look. And then just go on to the next thing. Because if you don't implement any of this stuff, then you can't change any patterns. You can't really change the outcome of a recipe you don't change. So I don't want this to just be a convenient, entertaining lesson for you, this whole video. I want this to be something that you actually implement, consume to implement. So do this work and share with us in the comment section what you're learning. Share all three of these steps with us if you want. Share one of them that's really profound for you, or expand on any of the lessons that you learned. And then here's the other thing I want to do. I want you to tell us in the comment section, what are your goals for the next time period, for the next year, for the next 6 months, whatever that is, because I want to choose somebody that tells us what their goals are and bring them on and actually do a demo. We'll do a demo here in a moment where we break down the goals for the next year, but I want to do this with one of our community members who shares what your goals are in the comments. So I want this to be interactive. Type in below and we might pick you to do a demo and help you set yourself up to win in your business for the next upcoming year. So those are the first two steps. Step number one, assess progress, intentions, effort, not production. Step number two, with that new energy of positivity, learn the lessons, notice what you didn't know before, capture whatever is important for you strategy-wise or internal to build upon or to implement for the next year. And then step three is put it in motion, or create a game plan, right? Now this is where we're setting the goals, but we're setting the goals in order to get the goals. And because of that whole conversation that we had in the first part of this video about the way that we relate to our goals, my invitation to pretty much everybody is to change your goals. Any goal that you're trying to achieve, that you've tried to achieve before and you haven't hit it, change the goal. It doesn't matter if you came close to it, or it doesn't matter if you really like that goal, change the goal. And the reason is because of what we said. There's probably an association that you have that's a negative association that's connected to not feeling good, like you're the problem, like Michelle was talking about, or there's just an association of failure to goals that you've already targeted in the past. So change the form of the goal, but that doesn't mean change the function of the goal, because you can actually just slightly change the goal and essentially you have the same target, but it's wrapped with a new package that doesn't have failure associated to it. So if last year your goal was to make $40,000 and you didn't make it, make this year's goal like $40,500 or $39,000 or $42,000. So essentially it's the same goal, but you've not failed at $39,500 before. You failed at $40,000. And most people would be blown away if they knew how that works to the unconscious mind. Just unplugging from something that we haven't failed before at, just that by itself, it's like a new slate. I mean, it's like cleaning all the connections and associations and attachments away for some people. It's not the only thing that's going to change everything for you, but you might be surprised at how significant it is to just set a new target so that this year you're shooting at something you've never shot at before. You're going after something you've never gone after before because you can't have negative associations to it because you never failed at it before. So create a new target, even if it's in the same realm, create a new target so that you have this energy of freshness. And that's what infuses hope into the human brain. When we're just repeating what we've done in the past, it's easy to get hopeless. Like Michelle talked about a little while ago, it's easy to think, oh, it's one of those again. I'm just going to repeat the same process. It doesn't matter what, how motivated I am this time. I'm going to end up failing just because I've always ended up failing. One of the things that's required to give a human a new set of hope or a new feeling of hope is to give the human a new target. That piece right there at an unconscious emotional level is so wildly important. And most people just don't recognize it. So set a new target. And then in a moment here, we're going to break down how to create a game plan for that target. But all of these are in order on purpose, right? If you set the game plan first, just because you understand how to do SMART goals, and then you go back and try to look at the year before and you've got stinky energy around it, or you make the shift that we're talking about, you're probably going to have to change the game plan or at least do it again because now your energy shifted, right? So I want you to do what we're saying in this order because we're giving it to you in this order for a reason. These stack on top of each other. Change the energy, learn the lessons with the new energy, set a new target, and then break down the goal into an action plan. And we're going to do that here with Michelle as our client. Before we do that, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, do what you just said to do, even if you feel like you're experienced or you feel like it's not necessary for you, do it anyway.
Yeah, that's good. It is easy to just take a lot of stuff for granted or think, I've done this before. I have a level of success, so this is only for the new people. And I'm glad you said that because it's not just for the new people. And the more success you have or the more experience you have under your belt, the more significant this could be, actually. Absolutely. It's easy for us to fall into patterns and not realize that we're taking ourselves out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Whew.
So let's dive into some goal breakdown here. And what we're going to do is use a relatively common goal that we hear from people in the coaching industry a lot. Now you'll be able to take whatever goal it is that you want and adjust the numbers or the circumstances that you might have in your life that's different than Michelle's or a little bit of a deviation from the path that you want to take, but all the concepts are going to apply. And we want you to catch the concepts. We also don't want you to think that if this does match your goal, that you should do exactly what we're going to talk about here and break down for Michelle, because just because you have the same goal doesn't mean you should follow the exact same path because you're not the same person.
Right.
And if this isn't your goal, we're not saying this should be your goal. So don't just follow what we're saying just because it sounds good. Remember, it has to start with what you want and what's believable for you. Actually, let's talk about that for a moment. Before we started recording, we talked a little bit about the belief factor. And we're not going to go super deep because this is a monstrous conversation as well when we get into beliefs. But I remember hearing a study that said most people can't fathom, like they can't actually picture themselves earning more than, I think it was 20% than what they currently earn. So with a money goal, if somebody is currently making $30,000, to the majority of the human brains, that brain can't even imagine making $40,000. because it's too big of a jump. It doesn't seem like it's a huge jump when we're all fired up and motivated and stuff. Like it's just extra $1,000 or $10,000 and we're going to make six figures and all this stuff. But we don't recognize that a lot of us are putting our goals beyond the capacity of belief, meaning we set the goals, and even if it's possible, we don't believe it. And if we don't believe it, we will ruin it. We will sabotage ourselves more often than not. So one of the things that we see a lot of times is, we ask somebody, what's your goal? And somebody go, I want to make $250,000. Okay, great. How much are you making now? 45 grand. Okay, not great. That's just too big of a jump for most people. Now, we're talking about what we see works and doesn't work based on over 20 plus combined years of experience, you guys. This is not theoretical. Most people non-believe their way out of their goals because their belief doesn't have the capacity to contain the goal. It's not about whether something is possible or not. It's about whether you believe you can do it and you want to do it. If either one of those two things are missing, you're not going to do this. Why would you go after something you either don't want or you don't believe is possible? It doesn't make sense. And yet we motivate ourselves with, yeah, but so-and-so did it, or I think it's possible, or whatever. So the reality is we have to set ourselves up to succeed. Now, what I was about to say is if any of this stuff doesn't apply to you because you are the kind of person that can be making $45,000 and set a goal of $250,000 and go for it and do all the activities that you set for yourself and not have the internal conflicts that are going to stop you and all the sabotage, then do it. But you're a unicorn if you do that. You are not the normal person. The reason that's really critical is because most of us think that's the normal story. Most of us think that we can be earning a certain amount, and then just because we believe we can multiply that by 10 times because we heard somebody did it one time, we think that's the norm. We think that's the expectation, and that is wildly uncommon. That is not the norm. That is an anomaly because of the internal game that we're talking about. So your goals have to be in the realm of your belief enough so that you actually take action on them. And ultimately, that's all that matters. Because if you're not taking action, you'll never get the goals. So it doesn't matter if the goal is believable to somebody else or if it's technically doable. If you're not taking action, it's not going to work. So that's what we want to help all of our clients do, is set a game plan for something that you'll actually do. And if we need to reel it back or expand it, that's on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the human, what's true for the human inside this recipe, right? All right. Anything you want to add to the belief conversation before we break down some goals?
Just the fact that I got really sad thinking that most people could increment their way to six figures over a period of 5 years and feel good and be making income and profits that whole entire time. But those same people are so committed to going from like $10,000 or $12,000 a year from their coaching business immediately to six figures that they spend 5 years not doing anything.
That right there.
That just bummed me out.
Awesome. So now that you've brought the energy of the video down, can you bring us back up? You got a joke to tell or something?
I actually did some math and I was like, even if somebody's making $75,000 a year, that 20% increment is only $15,000.
Yeah, it's
like,
not a lot.
It's not a lot. And it's the progress that's so important, right? And just to be making that every single year, you could be feeling good and achieving your goals. And that's what we want for you.
And I want to add a little caveat to this.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned, and this is my experience as well, because many people know that my first year as a coach my business, like first 18 months as a coach, my business generated over $300,000. And I didn't have anywhere near that kind of experience as a school teacher, as a probation officer, but I wasn't driven by the money. So it is possible. And when you do the things that we're talking about, and the most important thing is what works for you as an individual human, what would have been a ceiling for you can absolutely be crushed and expanded as a byproduct of just getting in motion. So what I mean by that is, let's say you take what we're talking about literally, and you go, all right, my coaching business this last year made $5,000 on the side. Well, the 20% is only an extra grand. So this year I want to make $6,000. It's actually more likely that you would set a $6,000 goal, get in motion, get a few coaching clients relatively early in the year, keep going with that ambition, and make 50 grand. It's actually more likely that you set a goal that you'll take action on, and that goal builds like a snowball going downhill, and then your momentum blows that goal out of the water. It's way more likely that you do that than going, I need to make $50,000 this year. And then you break it down all linearly, which means, okay, every single month I got to make this. And then you put all this pressure on yourself and then make $4,000 this year.
Yep.
Because of the pressure that's put. So there's this counter intellectual truth that when you set goals that are more realistic from a belief standpoint, you actually have a much better chance of blowing them up out of the water because of momentum and what's actually going to get you in motion. People don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear this idea that, you know, and we're not saying this is a hard and fast rule. I'm just saying there was a study that said most people can't contemplate more than 20% of what they currently make. That's just a rule. That doesn't mean everybody is restricted by that. But what we want you to really understand is we're talking about elements in the human psyche that's more important than the rules of setting goals, or more important than the fact that somebody's going to give you a template that allowed them to make 6 figures or make 7 figures, because the internal elements of the human psyche can sabotage all of it.
Your unconscious mind is working either way. So it's just a choice. Do I want to work with it or do I want to fight against it?
Bingo. All right. So let's use a goal that you hear quite often.
Yeah.
And I'll just let you set it up because you're the one that hears a lot of people, for whatever reason, use this. And we'll use a financial goal in this case. Mm-hmm. This whole process can be used with any target, but a lot of people obviously want to make money in a business, and part of a business is making money. So this is a common target for most people. And I think your business should have financial goals. You know, we gotta stop trying to pretend that a business isn't designed to make money, because a business is designed to make money, right? Mm-hmm. We need to change our relationship to that rather than pretend that we're, you know, we're the noble ones that are just building a business, you know, without being about the money, right? That actually creates more of a resistance. So what's the financial goal that we're going to use here?
Yeah, it's $60,000 a year. What I hear a lot of coaches say is that early on, that's more in alignment with what they might be making in corporate America. And so if they can be making $5,000 a month in their business, then it's something that they could go into full time.
Perfect. So we are going to break down this goal after. So we're assuming that we've assessed the year, we've learned the lessons, and now we're creating this new target, and we're going to break it down off of all the energy that we've already talked about in this business. And so now we're going to turn it over to Michelle. And if this was her goal, what are some of the things based on her experiences and her talents and what she's excited about doing and what she doesn't want to do to create this goal? But again, all of those are variables that might change for you. We want you to catch the concepts here, not necessarily the details. So if your goal is $5,000 a month, how are we going to get that goal? Meaning, let's break that down into whatever it is that you're wanting to sell. So if you want to sell individual coaching packages, or you want to sell online programs, or whatever it is that you want to sell, let's use that as a framework to create this $5,000 a month goal. So how are we going to get there?
Well, right now, one-on-one private coaching is what I have. I am open to the idea of creating an online program, but it's not something that I have in place at this time.
Okay, perfect. And one-on-one private coaching for people that feel confident and certain in their coaching skills, which is a whole nother conversation. We'll put a card that, to a playlist with all kinds of videos on that. Selling one-on-one private coaching, assuming that you've got embodied certainty, is actually the best thing to sell. Absolutely. But most people are afraid of that for all kinds of reasons that we won't break down right now. But most people are actually not doing the easiest thing. It's much easier to sell a one-on-one private coaching package with somebody over the phone or on Zoom, for $2,000 than it is to sell 200 $10 programs online. But selling $10 programs sounds easier and it seems more convenient. And we're in all these funnels online of people that are selling low price tickets, low ticket items, let's say, and we go, oh, that's cool. I can do that. I have $10 worth of confidence in me.
Right.
But what goes into creating the sales pages and the email campaigns and setting up the shopping carts and all the elements that are required to sell a $10 program and then do it 200 times and then create the community and create the events and all that stuff. Yep. It's 50 times harder than to just talk to some people on the phone and sell them a $2,000 coaching package, assuming that you feel confident in your services, assuming that you're a product of the product. Yeah. So one-on-one private coaching, and let's, don't give the number that you would charge right now in your journey, Michelle. Give a number that you either hear a lot with relatively new coaches or somewhere earlier on in your journey. Like what's a number that's probably more consumable for most people watching this?
In terms of the price of the coaching?
Yep.
Yeah. So early on in my journey, for both of those things, anywhere between $1,000 and $3,000. Like on the low end, like $1,000, $1,100. On the high end, $3,000.
Okay, so let's just lowball it with $1,000.
I like it.
And let's say that's for what, 3 months of coaching?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My first coaching package was $1,000 for 6 months of coaching, 1 hour every week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a real number for me back in the day.
Mine was like $250 for a month.
Yeah. And whatever you start with, that's what you start with.
That's right. I got paid, baby.
You got paid. You alluded to this earlier, that a lot of people are just trying to jump to, the future, wherever it is that they want to be, without going through the steps. And to your point earlier about the 5 years and people needing to get to $100,000, if people have a $3,000 coaching package because that's what somebody told them they should charge, or that's what they paid for somebody else, or for whatever reason, but they don't believe in that, and they hold out for this $3,000 for any kind of ego reason, the chance that they'll be able to sell that $3,000 coaching package is much smaller than if they sold a $500 package, gave somebody really good results, felt better about themselves, then increased their price to $750 the next time they sold something, and then increased their price to $1,000. A year down the road, they might be at $5,000 because of the momentum that we talked about. Whereas if they just hold out and try to get there too soon, they might not ever get there. And that's just one of the pricing fears that we see with a lot of people. All right. So one-on-one coaching.
I just want to say this, what you just described is exactly what I did, for the record. Small increments.
Got it. Perfect. Mm-hmm. You guys, we just want this to be easier. Meaning we want to tell you what we've learned through all kinds of pain, both ourselves and clients. Like, just do the thing that's going to set you up to win. And the majority of what most people are doing isn't that. The majority of what most people are doing is the opposite of that, actually. They're following game plans that are not designed for them, that are coming from their ego, that's driven by stuff they don't care about or they don't think they can do. But just because somebody sold it for $1,000 or it works for somebody else, like, you just think you're going to do this. And that's not the way to succeed in this business. All right. So one-on-one private coaching at $1,000 for 3 months.
Okay.
So if we're just going to look at this as the product, we're not going to take into account any of this other stuff, especially since you said you don't have that stuff.
Correct.
Then that means we need to sell how many packages per month?
5.
Ding, ding, ding. All right.
Woo! I was nervous about the math question.
You get to continue on to the next round. So 5 packages per month. Now, the way this works is this kind of breakdown of the goals. Every time you break it down to the next step before, like the step before $5,000 a month is how many things are we selling that are going to get us there? Okay, so now our new goal is 5 one-on-one coaching packages. Our goal is no longer $5,000 a month. Our goal is now 5 one-on-one coaching packages per month. So every time we break this down, that's our new goal. That's our new target. And we'll talk about why that's so important. So 5 packages per month. Now we got to look at what's the step right before selling somebody a coaching package. So what happens right before somebody says yes to a coaching package?
I have had a conversation with them, like a consultation call.
Okay. So the step right before is a consultation call. Now what we need to know is how many consultation calls should produce 5 coaching packages.
Okay.
And so this is where ratios come into play. And if any of you are scared of ratios, don't worry about it. We're not taking you back into math trauma or anything like that. But it's essentially, how many people do you need to talk to before somebody says yes, right? So if you generally need to talk to 5 people before somebody says yes to a coaching package, then that's your ratio, 1 out of every 5 people. So you can use a ratio that was true for you earlier on in your journey, Michelle, or you can use a common ratio that a lot of relatively new coaches have, whatever you want. But what's the ratio that we're going to work with here?
Yeah, 1 out of 4.
1 out of 4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were talking about this when you were explaining, you were doing this with a client recently. Mm-hmm. Where should people get that ratio from?
Well, when you don't have a lot of experience, you just reach up into the thin air and pick a number. Just guess. Yeah, just
Perfect.
Guess. Yeah.
And if you do have the experience, then what?
Then use that as a starting place.
Right. So the best way to assess what your individual ratio is to look at your results. It's not how many people do you think you need to talk to. It's how many people did you talk to get the number of clients that you have. That's
right.
Where these ratios should come from, because now we're dealing with evidence that's real based on you. If you don't have that, then just make it up. You can use 1 in 4 if you want. Just make it up, because we don't know what the ratio is. So don't get caught in that I want to do the right thing that Michelle talked about earlier, and then not do this process because you don't know what the right thing is, because you don't have the evidence yet. So you're either going to get it from the evidence that you do have, or you're just going to make it up. And it truly doesn't matter. And these ratios will never, ever, ever be followed to a T. You'll always get these wrong. You will never be able to follow this exactly. So don't worry about getting it wrong, because you're always going to get it wrong. This is really about just getting enough clarity to get in motion. So if we're going to use a 1-in-4 ratio, for every 4 people that you talk to, you sell 1 coaching package, and we want to sell 5 coaching packages per month, then how many consultations do you need?
20.
20 consultations per month. Now, this is the new goal. Now we're looking at, how can I get into 20 conversations with people per month? Now, that number sounds like a lot, but if you think about per month, there's roughly around 20 weekdays for every month. So that's really just one person that you talk to every weekday. So if you talk to one person every day, Monday through Friday, you're going to hit 20 consultations per month. So when you break this down and look at it, what it means daily, it gets smaller and a little bit more believable. So now our new goal is not 5,000 a month. It's not 5 coaching packages sold. It's 20 consultations every month. That's the focus. Now, it would be nice if you could just pull consultations out of your pockets and go, okay, I'm going to do a consultation. That would be fantastic, right? And if we could sell that product, we would sell out pretty quickly. But you can't. You know, people have to say yes to a consultation. People actually have to show up for a consultation. So what's the step right before people actually having a consultation with you?
Before they have the consultation, well, would be that they have to show up for the consultation that is scheduled. Are you asking about that, or the step before that?
The step before that. Because if they show up, then there's a consultation.
Yes.
So what has to happen? What's the step before that?
Yeah, I've got to schedule them. Like, I've got to have like people to reach out to and connect with, and have the conversation about getting them scheduled.
Got it. So we've got to schedule the consultation, or we have to book the consultation.
Correct.
So now this is another big step that a lot of people miss. If you want 20 consultations, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to schedule 20 consultations, because not everybody that schedules is going to show.
Humans do human things.
Humans do human things. So from your experience, how many people, like if 10 people book a call, let's say, how many of them are actually going to show up for the consultation?
7.
7 out of 10. All right. I'm going to just use slightly easier math. So
5.
we're going to say 5. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that would be easier for me.
Yes. Slightly easier math. So we can say 1, and it's better to round down anyway, so that we're a little bit more conservative. So let's just call it 1 out of 2. So for every 2 people that book a call, 1 of them is going to show. Now, in reality, it'll probably be a little bit higher than that. Our averages are right around what Michelle said, 70, 60, 70, 80% on a month-to-month basis are the people that are going to show. But let's just use 1 out of 2, so 50%. So what that means is, if you want to hold 20 consultations per month, then how many bookings must you have?
I know this one. It's 40.
Right. What? You didn't frame it as a question.
What is 40?
What is 40? Yes. You get to go on to the next phase. So now the new goal is 40 bookings. Not just 20 consultations anymore, and not any of the money stuff. The new goal is, how can I get 40 bookings? So hopefully this is making sense for you guys, how we're breaking this down, because we have to have action steps that we can actually do. And that's in our control. Up until this point, nothing that we've talked about is in our control. That's one of the biggest mistakes people make. I want to make $5,000 a month because I think I can, and somebody else said I could, and somebody else is doing it. So I'm just going to will myself to make $5,000 a month. Okay, great. Problem is, other people need to participate in your journey. So let's focus on what it is that you can control. And none of this is 100% controllable because other people need to book the calls. Other people are deciding whether they show up to the calls. Other people are deciding whether they're going to say yes to the coaching packages. As long as somebody else is making a decision, you're not in control. So we need to continue breaking this down until we have something that you control. So what's the step before the bookings?
I got to reach out to some folks.
Perfect.
Yeah, I got to network.
Can we call that, let's call it invitations.
Great. Yeah.
So you're inviting them to book a call.
Correct.
What would you say the ratio is of how many people are invited to book a call versus people that actually do book the call?
Ooh, people are invited to book a call that actually book a call 1 out of 5.
1 out of 5. Okay. All right. So now this next step is going to be really important for a couple of reasons. And I'll explain it once it shows up. So now, what's the new goal? What's the new focus? You want 40 bookings. 1 out of 5 people that receive an invitation will book. How many invitations now are we looking at?
200.
Now, this is really important to understand because all of these steps are what it takes. People are not just going to buy your coaching package. I mean, it'd be nice, right? If we just will, put it in your calendar at 9:30. I'm selling a coaching package. All these steps are requirements. So if you don't break it down like this and you just think that you're going to will yourself into $5,000 a month, but you don't recognize, that means 200 invitations. And if all of these numbers are correct, meaning all the ratios are correct, let's just say for now they're correct. And this is what 95% of the people are doing. They have this goal of $5,000 a month. We take a look at what they've actually done and how many invitations they've actually made. A lot of times the answer is 0. But they're frustrated because they haven't reached their $5,000 goal. And the reality is it's literally impossible because you haven't done the steps. And this is where we have to be neutral about this stuff. You guys, you cannot produce something by not following the recipe that's required to produce the thing. If 200 invitations are required, you can't produce 5 coaching packages without making a lot of invitations. You just can't do it. And there's a part of this process where we just have to be blunt and honest with people. And you need to be blunt and honest with yourself. If you're not doing the things that are required to produce the outcome, you won't get the outcome. And it doesn't matter how much you wish you were. And it doesn't matter how long you've been a coach. And it doesn't matter how good you are. And it doesn't matter how much you can help people. None of that shit matters. If you're not doing the things that are going to produce the outcome, you can't produce the outcome. My experience is at minimum 95%, minimum 95% of the coaches are willing their way, wishing their way, affirmationing their way, vision boarding their way, but they're not inviting their way to try to get their goals. And this is just the hardcore, blunt, tough love truth, you guys. If you're not taking the actions, it's impossible to produce the result. And I've only met 3 people in 17 years of doing this work. And one of them was 2 weeks ago. I've only met 3 people that have told me what they're doing. And I looked at the recipe they're following and went, wow, you should actually be getting more results than you're getting. 99.9% of the time, it's of course you're getting the results you're getting because look at the recipe you're following. This is the problem for most people. It's just the recipe is not being followed. Now, most people don't even have this recipe. Now, we're not done yet, but this now is more in the realm of our control. We can make invitations. Whether people see the invitations, that's another thing. Whether they respond to the invitations, that's another thing. But now we're getting into the realm of what we can control, which is invitations. But this is still not good enough because to make an invitation, there's got to be communication. There's got to be a platform. There's got to be something that our unconscious mind actually needs more clarity on. So with the invitations, Michelle, how are you going to make those invitations? Is it going to be on social media? Is it going to be via email? Is it going to be face-to-face? Is it going to be over the phone? How are you actually going to make those invitations?
Social media.
Okay.
Email.
Before you go on, I don't know what that was for. Is there anything you want to speak to that? Was it based on anything that I had said or the thought that you just had? Or was it just answering this question?
It was one of the biggest shifts for me. And this was before I got into coaching. It was in an earlier entrepreneurial business, was the idea that I needed to stop being upset about results I was not getting from work I was not doing.
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah. Stop being upset. Stop beating yourself up. Stop beating yourself up for results you're not getting from work you're not doing. And it's two parts in that, right? Like Sean was just saying a moment ago that I almost came out of my seat on is oftentimes if you actually look at the results that you are getting for the work you are doing, you'd probably be impressed.
Probably doing a good job.
Probably doing better than a good job. Like, and then you would celebrate and then you would feel good because no, you don't have the $5,000 a month, but you're not doing $5,000 a month work. You got $500 a month, but you made like half a reach out in one social media post. That's pretty amazing. And then you would celebrate and then you would feel good. And the other piece of this is what we were talking about earlier, which is then just the neutral.
Which, by the way, before you move on, which would then lead to more action.
Bingo.
If you feel good, then you'll do more action, which will increase your results.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is why it's so important to stop beating yourself up for the results you're not getting for work you're not doing. That's why this whole entire video is so important. And the beginning step of that neutral looking back assessment of what are the choices that I made and what are the results that I got? I actually really only worked my business 5 hours really in 2021. And I have a couple $1,000s. That ain't bad income per hour ratio. I feel really good about that. I want to do more this year, so let me up my results. And so what we do in this process of beating ourselves up or not breaking this down this way, when we avoid this, then we rob ourselves of feeling good about the progress that we're making and having the clarity to see what we want to do any differently. And then the other thing is that honestly, Sean, if I see that and I don't want to do what it takes,
that's
huge. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Okay. Social media.
Yeah. So where are the invitations going to come from?
My pocket. No, I'm kidding. Social media posts and videos where I'm, telling people about what I do and making offers.
Okay. Be more specific because social media posts, there's like 500 social media platforms. So
okay. Yeah,
exactly
that's good.
How and where?
Thank you. On Facebook, I'll make Facebook posts where I give value, and then other Facebook posts where I talk about what I do and make an offer to speak to me.
Okay.
I will also do the same thing on Instagram. I will go live on those platforms, or post videos that are recorded, not necessarily live. I will make individual reach outs to have conversations with people who are engaging with me inside of those videos and posts that I'm doing, to just have start a conversation online with them first.
Okay.
I will also email people that I've talked to in the past and make just connection with them and see where they're at, and offer an opportunity to talk to them, not to have a consultation, but offer them the opportunity to talk with them, just to catch up and see where they're at, and explore if there is an opportunity for me to serve them. So reach out to people for connection calls and conversations.
Perfect. That's another big piece that I think a lot of people miss, is they just want to just jump straight to the consultation. And that's why, nowadays there's so many just sales, intrusions in DMs and LinkedIn and Facebook posts and all this kind of stuff. I know you've seen a lot of my responses back to some of these people.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Sometimes I get a little irritated because the reason I get irritated is clearly people are being taught that the way to succeed in this industry is just fire off a bunch of shallow, automated responses and not know anything about the person you're sending messages to, and not give them any kind of exploratory questions, and just sell them right out of the gate. Hey, if I could show you a way to make 3 to 5 high ticket sales every month, would you be interested? And me, I'm always like, dude, you don't even know my name. You don't even know what my goals are. And, kiss me first. So Facebook posts plus invitations, live videos, Instagram posts plus invitations, live videos, individual direct messages with people that are engaging on those posts, and email prospects. If your goal is 200 invitations via social media per month, how many invitations do you think will come from a Facebook post?
Are you asking me how many times I'll make an invitation inside of a post?
How many individual invitations? So if you're going to make a group invitation in your Facebook post, how many people are going to engage to the point where you actually make individual invitations for them to book a call? In other words, one Facebook post equals how many individual invitations? What does it usually produce?
The first number that came to mind was 0.25.
0.25
person.
All right. So let's round that up to one person.
Perfect.
For the sake of this discussion, I think this is really critical. All right. So now Facebook Live videos. How many invitations should those produce?
3 to 5. Let's say 5. That feels good to me, actually.
Okay. And then what about Instagram posts? How many invitations?
Yeah, 1.
Okay. And Instagram lives?
3.
Okay. The email prospects, I'm not even going to count that in here because that's a finite number.
Yep.
Whereas you can do Facebook posts every month and just keep going and increase your engagement and increase your community and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
but you only have 50 prospects or 10 or 200 or whatever it is. In
Yep.
the early phases, you can add that in, but at a certain point, relatively early point for most people, it's not going to be a self-sustaining thing.
Right.
So I'm not even going to use that in these calculations. So then here's what we have. We have one Facebook post equals one invitation, one live video equals 5 invitations, one Instagram post equals 1 invitation, one live Instagram video equals 3 invitations. Now we've got value assigned to each of the activities.
Right.
And this might seem like it's dissecting and we're in the mud and it might not make sense to you, but you guys, it doesn't matter whether you like the math or not. This is the process. It's impossible for you to make invitations unless people know about you. It's impossible unless you actually are visible, unless you take some of these actions. It's impossible. So whether you like these numbers or not, or this process or not, this is the process. There is no way that anybody could get coaching packages through consultation calls without this process. Right. I mean, unless there's something that's different than Michelle's details, like maybe you do, you're paying for ads or something like that, and you've got this ongoing, prospect machine, but this is the process. So there is no way around this. It's just whether you do it or not. And we'll talk about, if this really bogs you down, we'll talk about here in a moment what to do. But now we have assigned a value to each one of these things. So if you were to operate like most people do and just go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get really brave and I'm going to do one Facebook Live every single week. And I'm going to be really brave and I'm going to do one Instagram Live every single week. Yep. And then I'm going to follow those up with a post every week on both of those platforms. And that might feel really good because it's more than you usually do. And you see other people doing it. So you're following the leader and it looks really good and sounds really good. You're like, all right, now I'm really in motion. I'm going to get to those $5,000 every month because I'm in motion. Okay. And then the wet blanket shows up and goes, okay, so one live video a week. That means 4 live videos, 5 per. That means you might get 20 invitations. One live Instagram a week. That means 3 per, which means 12 invitations from Instagram. So now we're at 32. One Facebook post per week, 1 invitation per. That's 4 additional ones. Now we're at 36. One Instagram post per week, 1 invitation per post. That's 4 more. Now we're at 40. What looks like a lot of motion, according to your own numbers, and I'm not saying you came up with this. I took this into a different example here because this is what most coaches are doing. Now, according to your own numbers, your activity, if these numbers are followed, meaning each of the posts and lives produce all of these, now you've got 40 invitations per month when you're supposed to have 200. And if 200 invitations is going to produce 40 bookings to keep you on track, but you only did 40 invitations and you've got a 1 in 5 booking ratio, now you've got 8 bookings. So instead of 200, you got 40. Instead of 40 bookings, you got 8. If there's a 1 in 2 ratio for people to show up to consultations, now instead of 20 consultations, you have 4. And if 1 out of every 4 consultations buys a coaching package, now instead of 5 packages, you've got 1. Now, instead of $5,000 a month, you've got $1,000 a month. According to the numbers, that's an epic failure. According to your activities, that's fantastic success.
Right.
Because you're producing what your activities only have the capability of producing. So now is the moment of truth. If you're committed to using social media to produce consultations to get this goal, the moment of truth is, are you willing to do a Facebook Live every day?
Right.
And an Instagram Live every day? And a post every day? Because that's the only way that this recipe has the potential of creating the results that you want. And this is where you were going a moment ago. If you're not, change the goal. Because if you're not willing to follow what's required, it's impossible to produce the goal. It's impossible. So if you recognize, I don't have the time, or I don't have the confidence right now, or I don't have the whatever it is to do what's required for this $5,000 a month goal, then be happy with $1,000 a month, because that's the recipe that you're following. And then build into 2 videos a week, and then build into 3 videos a week. You can build into these goals. But the bottom line is this: most people are simply not doing the activities, to your point earlier, Michelle, to produce the results, but then they beat themselves up for not having the results from the activities they're not doing. They don't do the activities because they don't have this level of clarity most of the time of what could produce the outcomes. So then people just run around frustrated that they're not producing the goals, but they don't have a recipe to follow. That right there, I think, explains at minimum 95% of the coaching industry, minimum. And I guarantee you it's closer to 100. This is the tough love that people need if you want to build a business and you're serious about getting these goals. If you're not serious and committed to the $5,000 a month, then land wherever your activities are going to land and start collecting these numbers for you, and recognize, I'm following a recipe that can only produce $300 on average per month. Celebrate $300 per month. Don't wish your way into $5,000 a month when you're following a $300 a month recipe and then constantly be frustrated, because pretty soon you're going to quit. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly going to be beating yourself up.
Yeah. And think that something's wrong with you. Like we said at the beginning,
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with you. It's not you. It's the recipe. That's what this does. That's what this did for me. It took me out of it. It wasn't me. It was the recipe. And that was easier to work with. I could adjust the recipe. It wasn't my fault.
And then you can adjust the recipe that's more in alignment with who you are and the time you have and the things that you're willing to do and the goals that you actually have, so that you can set yourself up to win with your unique, individualized, personalized game plan. Almost nobody does this, which is why almost nobody succeeds. Most people are just blindly following recipes that weren't designed for them, committing to things they don't have the body to do, they don't have the time to do, they don't have the energy to do, but they just stay stuck emotionally on these goals, and they literally have zero chance of achieving the goals. And then they just stay stuck in the frustration, and then they try to emotionalize the manifestation of their goals, which will never work ever. So if you are serious about building a business, you've got to follow the steps that are required to build a business.
Well,
period. That's just the way it is. If you're not at that place yet, then wherever you are, commit there. Wherever you are, commit there. Commit to the next step of evolution and progress for you. because you'll enjoy the process more and you'll actually do the work. And like Michelle said earlier, if you're doing the work and you feel good about doing the work and what the work is producing, you'll keep doing it. And if you feel good about what you're doing and you keep doing it, you will by nature start to increase all of these ratios. You'll start to increase the actions that you take. You'll start to increase the conversions because you're getting better. You're feeling better. You're more confident. Your message is evolving. And you're going to get more certain about the work that you're doing. And pretty soon you might increase the $1,000 for a 3-month package to $3,000 for a 3-month package. And all of this stuff can evolve in a positive way, but only with not motivation. I got caught up there because I was going to say with only unconditional commitment. That means commitment regardless of your motivation. Unconditional commitment to the goals. And then what happens is after you do this, you learn what your numbers are. Not theoretically what the numbers should be. You learn what your numbers actually are. And that's when your business can become predictable. So that you know what a Facebook Live actually produces based on 50 of them. And what most of us are going to find, especially in the world of social media, the things we wished were true aren't true. But you got to know that rather than hoping a fantasy will come true. You got to know what you're actually dealing with. And then some of you might recognize Facebook is not the place I want to be, or Instagram is not the place I want to be, or there's literally not enough days in the week or in the month to create what I want to create with just Facebook or Instagram. I have a client that fills his calendar constantly on TikTok. That's his thing. And because of what he was creating, he then moved into podcasting. And he can do some episodes, some videos on TikTok or some episodes in his podcast and create all of these numbers that he wants. But it's all based on evolution. And he put in so much work to know this is what a TikTok session produces. This is what a podcast generally produces. So he can literally go, I want some clients, which means I need some consultations, which means I need to do 3 TikTok videos and 4 episodes on my podcast. Like that's the level of predictability we can get to, but not with theory. This has turned into a masterclass.
Right? This was good.
This has turned into, it's a long video, obviously, but it's turned into a masterclass of breaking down success and setting ourselves up to succeed, specifically in the coaching industry. And almost none of this is being taught for all kinds of reasons that, we'll do more videos on. But if you're committed to succeeding in this industry, you've got to do some version of this. Your details can be completely different. You might not want to have anything to do with social media. Your way of getting consultations or getting clients could be doing affiliate ventures with other people's audiences. It could be joint venture partnerships where you co-create with somebody else. It could be summits that you do. It could be ad campaigns that you run. Like there are a lot of different ways to feed into your funnel and get people into your business. But you've got to be clear on what that is so that you can take action. Because now, if we said, Michelle, your new goal is not $5,000 a month. It's not 5 coaching packages. It's not 40 bookings. It's 1 Facebook. Let's say that you, Michelle, are willing to do a Facebook Live every day. Right. Now the goal is 1 Facebook Live every day, 1 Instagram Live every day, 1 Facebook post every day, 1 Instagram Live every day. Now you've got clarity on 100% controllable activities.
That's right.
And then if you go do this, which is doable, right? I mean, honest, like what would it take? That would take a few hours per day to do 4 of those things. Would you agree?
Yeah, including like creating the content and being like strategic about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you'll find a rhythm and it'll evolve. And maybe your Facebook lives in the beginning are 12 minutes and they turn into 4 minutes or vice versa. And you find a rhythm and you figure it out. And then what I would want to do is 30 days from now. So my invitation to you as my client would be, all right, are you clear on the goals? You're going to do this, 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 and this on a daily basis because that's what you said you're going to commit to.
Right.
30 days from now, you're going to show me what came of your 20 Facebook lives and your 20 Instagram lives and your 20 posts on each of the platforms. What got produced? Did it produce what we thought it might?
Right.
Whether it did or didn't doesn't matter emotionally. It doesn't mean you suck. It doesn't mean anything about you personally. It just means we thought 20 Facebook posts was going to create X number of invitations. And here's what it did create.
Right. It might be more.
It might
and
be
I'm
more.
like, whoa, I got to do less because I don't have the capacity for all of this that's happening. But the only way we can know that is through doing the action and then testing it. Yeah, I have enough to get in motion, which is that's everything. That's everything.
And 30 days from now, we might take a look and go, okay, what was your results of the 20 Facebook lives and the 20 Instagram lives and all the posts? And you might go, I didn't do them.
Right.
Awesome. Why didn't you do them?
That's right.
Not from a shame perspective, but learning the lessons. Okay. Did you schedule them? Maybe you didn't schedule them and you were just going to do it whenever you felt like doing it. Okay. So now the next step might be scheduling them. Did you schedule them, but you didn't know what you were going to talk about? So since you didn't know what you were going to talk about, you didn't hit go live. And so now the next step for the next month is schedule them and plan what you're going to say. Like, even if it's just 3 bullets, or maybe you did schedule it, maybe you did bullet them out, but right before you hit go live, you realize your hair's not done. The lights aren't right. It's not the right time of the day. A lot of people are having dinner. Okay. So now we've set ourselves up, but your fear of whatever showed up is what caused you to not do the things. Okay. So now we know what to work on. If we don't have a clear set of goals in terms of actions, and the client doesn't produce what they're wanting to produce, but we don't have a clear target in the first place, then we can't make any adjustments. So this is all about, let's dissect what needs to happen in order to produce what we want. And if that is being followed, in other words, if you're following the recipe, then what's the production? And let's adjust wherever we need to adjust. If you're not doing it, why? Now we got to go into the internal game. And of the, let's call it 95% of the coaches that are not doing all this stuff, 100% of the reason why is going to be internal. Yeah. It's going to be an internal game. So in my experience, 100% of the 95% of the people who are not doing this are stopping themselves internally. So you don't need another program. You don't need to go to another seminar. You don't need to buy somebody else's template. You need to get over the internal game to do the thing that you're not doing so that we can figure out what kind of output is your effort going to create so that we can adjust the effort, adjust the activities, try different things so that we can ultimately get where it is that we're wanting to go. The majority of people, which is what you spoke to earlier when you mentioned 5 years later, most people won't get to where they're wanting to go because they want to jump right to that 6-figure mark. The majority of people don't have anywhere near the level of clarity, or they don't have a coach to pull this out of them, or they don't have accountability, or they don't have support. They don't have what they need to actually build a business other than just a wing and a prayer, right? Other than just a vision board and wishing really hard.
Power.
And I'm delivering this with as much love as possible. That's cool. And it doesn't work. If you want to build a business with any level of stability, you've got to act like it. If you're not willing to act like it, then you're not going to build a business with stability. So then stop pretending that you want to. And I'm not saying that with shame. I'm saying that to advocate your happiness on this planet. If you're not willing to do the things that are going to produce a result, then stop pretending you want that result so you can be a happier human. So you can be more present in your relationships. So you can like who you see in the mirror more. Rather than beating yourself up, to Michelle's point, which is so ridiculously powerful, rather than constantly being misery in motion and beating yourself up for the results you're not producing because of the actions you're not taking. That's not a way to live life, and it's not a way to build a business. And that's the cycle that most people are in. So thank you for attending our masterclass. It didn't start out that way when we turned the cameras on. We didn't plan on doing a 2-hour video here. But this is what it takes. And again, this is based on all of our experience, not theory. And in the spirit of everything that we've been talking about and the need for personalization, if any of you want help with any of this stuff, first of all, if you didn't already make a comment and we'll pick somebody and help somebody create their own personalized game plan like this. We call this a personalized action plan. And any of you can book a one-on-one consultation so we can support you in getting some clarity on what your goals are and what your next steps are. Because honestly, some of you are not, this is not your next step. The breaking down of the goal is not the next step because you don't even know what your coaching package would be, or you don't have confidence in yourself as a coach. You don't even know what the product is. So this might not be your next step, or some of you might be beyond this step. And your next step might be, okay, I'm already at $5,000 a month or 2,000 or 10 or whatever it is. I want to be able to scale so that I'm not just selling one-on-one coaching packages. Wherever you are, there's a next step. And if you want support in identifying what that is or actually implementing a strategy to get there, then book a free call. There's a link in the description of our video here, and it'll take you to a calendar where you can book a one-on-one consultation so that we can help you individually and not just try to put you in a vague assembly line, which is essentially what the majority of the coaching market is caught up in. I just got this visual of everybody just being like swirled around in a washing machine, right? Or a big old dryer, just being thrown around in all these vague assembly line, one size fits all solutions. And that'll never help you identify what your individual recipe is and help you create the right game plan for you. If you like this video, take a look at that video right there, where I break down how to increase your sales as a coach, which will help you achieve all those numbers that we just talked about. That puts us in somewhat of a precarious situation because we can easily be convinced that we're not ready, that we don't have what it takes,